From courtside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast. This is episode 488. I am Andrew Now Forum, Andrew NLSC on Twitter. Joining me as always, my co-host Derek, DV3 Now Forum, and DV3G and DV384 on Twitter. Derek, good to be talking to you as always. We now know the roadmap for the NBA 2K24 preview season, and that NBA Live 09 works on the PS3 emulator now. Who's to say which is more exciting?
Yeah, this is exciting news for the basketball gaming community, especially fans of NBA Live 09 and those who use the RPCS3 PS3 emulator. The game finally works on the emulator, and it works incredibly well, as you and I figured out. The picture is beautiful. It's incredibly smooth, and it worked really well for you over Parsec. We were the Utah Jazz, and we went against the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Kevin Love Timberwolves. And that gameplay video is up on the NLSC YouTube right now.
So you say the Kevin Love Timberwolves. So I thought you would say the Randy Foye Timberwolves.
Or the Al Jefferson Timberwolves, because he's the one who really killed us.
That's true.
Al Jefferson in NBA Live video games, when he was in his prime, and even just like the younger version of Al Jefferson, is mostly unstoppable. I talked about it when I was playing against the computer on NBA Live 14. I got torched by Al Jefferson in the mid-range, in the post, around the rim. I'm not going to say that he's overdone, because Al Jefferson was a very, very good player. He's a good scorer, great footwork in the post, etc. But yeah, he is just really good in those late 2000s, early 2010s NBA Lives. But yeah, it was, us using what you called like a version of the Bulls.
Yeah,
Jazz,
at least three future Bulls on that
right,
squad.
Yeah. Carlos Boozer, we have Kyle Korver on there, Brewer, etc. It's a fun team. We have Darren Williams, and we have Okur, who can stretch the floor and whatnot. Korver's signature shot in that game, how perfect is that? It looks exactly like Kyle Korver's real shot, and it is so fun to shoot. As you noticed, right when I put Korver in the game, I took a three.
Yes.
And I kept looking for him for threes for the rest of the game. And I obviously preferred him being out on the floor over Brewer. But we played against the Wolves, like I said. It's an interesting Wolves team. It's Randy. They have shooters. They have some shooters like Randy Foye and whatnot. Kevin Love isn't really shooting threes yet. He's actually in the mid-range there with Al Jefferson and everything. But they have Boston Celtics legend Sebastian Telfair on that squad. It's a very interesting Wolves team, and they took us to the limit. I mean, we were down by 3 with roughly 10 seconds to go in regulation, and I had to step back behind the 3-point line and jack a 3 with shooting legend Kyle Korver, and I smoked it, and then that's what sent us into overtime. But how about that defense we played in the OT?
Excellent swarming defense, just leading to buckets at the other end. And I think we probably did ease up a little bit as the game went on in regulation. I think we were also trying to make highlights, which it's very hard not to fall into that trap sometimes, because you want to do cool things. And of course, we have the top 10 plays that you curate every week, so we're always thinking in the back of our minds about what we can do for the top 10 or the YouTube channel, or sharing it on social media or whatever. And maybe we got a little bit careless during the game, but you hit that big clutch shot with Korver to send us into OT, and yeah, just what a run in OT. And yeah, we took it seriously then.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention the versatility of AK-47, Andrei Kirilenko, that helped us out so much in that game. He was, big with defense on the perimeter and at the hoop. He was throwing it down. He was a really good, he was stretching the floor. I hit a key 3 with him in overtime and whatnot. What a good player to have in real life and in video games, right? Somebody so versatile, tall, long.
Mr. 5x5,
that can do so many different things. Right, exactly. So that gameplay video is up. My thoughts on NBA Live 09, it is obviously better than NBA Live 08.
Yeah. Easily.
It is not as smooth or quite as reactive as NBA Live 10. Visually, in my opinion, it's actually more appealing than NBA Live 10. I think the graphics overall are a little bit better. But I still think I lean in favor of Live 10, but Live 09 isn't too far behind.
I kind of look at it the same way I look at Live 99 and 2000. Closer than perhaps people remember to the more renowned release, if you will. And yeah, I also favor Live 10 over Live 09, but it was really fun to revisit. Absolutely open to revisiting it again now that we know that it works on the emulator. One of my biggest pet peeves with NBA Live 09 is the rebounding. There's a very canned moment where if you're not going to get the board, you'll play it as a little hop. It doesn't even jump fully for the board. And I remember that being a big pet peeve at the time as well for me. And when that was resolved in Live 10, really being impressed by that and happy about that. But I would pick 10 over 09, but 09, just like 99 and 2000, it's still close. It still holds its own against its more renowned successor.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to include that as part of our rotation. You know, we've recently added NBA 2K14 for the Xbox One to it. NBA Action 98, that's going to be a go-to for us. And now NBA Live 09 as well.
Live
not
18,
like we didn't have enough go-tos. Yeah, Live 18. Not that we didn't have enough go-tos before. But the fun never stops, and we always have something to throw on and have a blast with. But yeah, NBA 2K24, Andrew. The roadmap. When they say that we're going to be getting gameplay on August 14th, my thought on that is it's going to be very, very limited. Possibly a gameplay trailer. Probably not much like true on-court action where, you know, somebody has the control physically in hand and you can see it from like the 2K view or the broadcast view. It probably wouldn't be the broadcast view because, you know, they usually display it in 2K view. But yeah, I'm not expecting too much on August 14th with the gameplay review.
Yeah, so we'll just quickly run down the roadmap that they posted on Twitter, or X, or whatever it's called when you're listening to this. Week of August 14th is when it all tips off. Gameplay with ProPLAY, which is exclusive to Next Gen. They did mention that in the graphic, the roadmap there. Week of August 21st is the W, My NBA, and Mamba Moments. So we have confirmation of Mamba Moments, and it looks like that's going to be on both generations as well, like the Jordan Challenge. So that is good news. My NBA is, however, Next Gen only, or New Gen only, whatever you want to call it. Week of August 28th, My Career, The City, and My Team. And week of September 4th, Season 1 in My Team and My Career. Now, the game comes out September 8th, Derek. So this is, once again, a very abbreviated preview season. One of the shortest, really. Just going to be this rush of information beginning the week of August 14th. And I'm with you. I think it's going to be not as deep a look as certainly we used to get, not as deep a look as people want. I am intrigued, of course, to find out more about ProPLAY. But yeah, I do think this is going to be another underwhelming preview season.
And then you'll have all of those fake, quote-unquote, gameplay leaks.
Yeah.
That get, you know, sent out right around August 14th. And and I've said this before. I want to say I've said it for the last couple of years on the NLSC podcast whenever we bring this up. I think that those leaks, you know, from these high influencers are not like really leaks. They're the company probably trying to put feelers out there, right?
Viral marketing, yeah.
Right, exactly. It's a form of marketing. It's like getting some footage out there that's like supposedly taken on a phone or something like that shows off like a meter or a different presentation element or whatever, and they're just trying to gauge the feedback related to that, right?
It wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't surprise me.
So that is that's just my opinion on it, because it's the same thing every year, and sometimes it's even the same influencers, right? So like there's no way that all of these are quote unquote just like leaks or people doing something that they're not supposed to, or like the company is against. But yeah, I'm not expecting a lot of gameplay on August 14th. I also didn't see any mention of a demo, so that is unfortunate. They used to do demos. They did a demo with NBA 2K20, if you remember correctly.
Yeah, 2K21 as well, yeah.
Yeah, 2K21.
I read the Monday Tip-Off the other week making the case for basketball game demos, and when I started to write that article, as I said in the article itself, my original thought was, this is this is an old idea we need to bring back. And then I thought, no, NBA Live was doing demos up until Live 19. And then I recalled 2K did it up till 2K21. So it's not this old school idea that we haven't seen for years. Sometimes it feels that way, but we've had demos very recently, so it's not like they're irrelevant. You could do it today.
Yeah. Yeah, and in NBA Live 19, the demo gameplay, in my opinion, was the best.
Yeah.
Of the stuff for the game. I think that game got hurt in a big way.
Post-release, yeah.
And whatnot. The game became more sluggish. I feel like the gameplay became more canned. I think that the shooting took a hit related to the patches as well. We've talked about that many times. So, yeah, it is disappointing that people can't get their hands on the game to try it before deciding to, put out $60 or $70 to buy the game, or sometimes $100 or $150, depending on which version you are looking at. As far as the other bits and pieces, I'm not expecting anything really new for my NBA eras. The Mamba Moments mode is going to be interesting. I wonder how many licenses they're going to have for the players in relation to that mode, and what type of, challenges they're going to put in there, and how many. I don't know how many they're going to put in there as well. So that will be interesting to learn about. I'm not expecting any new classic teams. I'm not expecting any new licenses, really, for players that are missing in the game. And if we do get some, I'm guessing it would be few and far between. I think the big things this year that is going to be quote unquote new is going to be Mamba Moments and the ProPLAY feature. And I think those are the two big ones this year.
Those do seem like the signature improvements or additions in 2K24. With Mamba Moments, that early screenshot of Kobe, one of the first screenshots of Kobe, did have the NBA Finals patch, the later NBA Finals patch, on his jersey. So I think it's possible that we get a 2009 or 2010 Lakers squad. With that being said, I could see it being like the Jordan Challenge, where it's available, the Jordan Challenge in 2K23 that is, where it's available within the mode, but we don't have it for regular gameplay. For example, the 95 Bulls were brought back for the Jordan Challenge as they were in 2K11, but they're not among the selection of retro teams, classic teams, for exhibition play or to put into my NBA, etc. So I could see them adding teams for the moments, but then not making them available outside of that.
Yeah, which would be frustrating for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, it's there in the game. You've got the assets to work with, especially in the modding community. But the more we have out of the box, the better. Because people often say, we can just mod it, which we can. Not necessarily on console, of course. But having that available right out of the box or right out of the gate, since a lot of digital copies these days, some people don't have boxes. But having that available without any kind of manipulation or modding is so important. Having those assets on hand and available.
Yeah, I also want to point out in relation to the late 2000s Lakers, it's actually the 08-09 Lakers that are the stronger team out of the two, between 08-09 and 09-10. The 08-09 Lakers almost won 70 games. They were high 60s in the win column. And the 09-10 Lakers won 57, I want to say, strictly off memory. I think the draw for the 09-10 team, there's two draws to the 09-10 team. One, instead of Trevor Ariza at small forward, you have Meta World Peace.
Yep.
And he's more well-known. He's more popular than Ariza. And in 09-10, obviously, they ended up going against the Celtics in the finals, right? Which was more special in a way than beating the Orlando Magic because it's the Celtics-Lakers rivalry.
Exactly.
So I think 09-10 is the popular choice, but it's not necessarily the stronger team. So I could care less which one they chose if they ended up adding them to NBA 2K, whether it be 08, 09, or 09, 10. I'd use either one of them. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Like I said, I'm still on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm a 7 out of 10 as far as my personal excitement for NBA 2K24. It's going to be another game that I can add to my collection, something else for me to look at. I might dive into my team again like I did with NBA 2K23. See how that gameplay is and whatnot. My brother and I, it's guaranteed we're going to have a legend season, a co-op season against regular teams like we do every single year. We'll post those highlights. That will be fun. So I'm going to have enjoyment with it, right? I just hope that the majority of the consumer base feels like they're being treated fairly and that they enjoy the game.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm intrigued to see what's happening with my career in the city. Not that I expect to spend much time with the mode. If I enjoy the gameplay of 2K24, I think I will gravitate towards my NBA eras. Obviously, Mamba Moments as well. Want to check out what that's all about. But I want to see, going back to what we talked about last week, with the whole talk, the teaser of it being a streamlined experience, more streamlined experience in my career this year, what they've done with my career, what they've done with the city, whether they've backed off on some of the more intrusive non-basketball elements, or whether they've just ramped that up while still streamlining other parts. Just interested to see how it works, because I was kind of doom and gloom, and still I'm very skeptical about it, but I was very doom and gloom about the future of my career, talking about how I thought it had reached the point of no return, talking about how I thought it wasn't going to get any better because they were just leaning fully into Fortnite with basketball. Maybe not the case. So I am interested to see about that. And of course, my team I do have an interest in as well. So, look, I am still interested in the previous season, but it's just a shame we don't get weeks and weeks of in-depth previews and in-depth developer blogs like we used to get, and that it starts much earlier so there's more hype. You know, there's no hype really starting until 2 weeks or so before the game. And that's just not fun anymore.
Well, the two primary concerns when it comes to that mode and playing online and whatnot is, one, gameplay, right? It's got to be fun on the sticks. And two, the microtransaction piece.
Exactly.
Those are the two big ones. If the gameplay is good and you don't feel like you have to shell out a bunch of dough in order to, have fun in the modes, or, get your player to be able to compete, all of that stuff. If those two items are not, frustrating and, ruin your experience, then, hey, you may want to get into that online scene, right?
Maybe,
you may want to try to put NLSC Thrill together and all of that. So we will see, but it really comes down to how the game feels on the sticks out of the gate, and how it feels on the sticks when you're not shelling out a bunch of money, right?
Exactly.
So I think those are the primary concerns.
And I don't see it getting any better with recurrent revenue mechanics, with microtransactions. I mean, they may be streamlining it, they may be improving in that regard, but I still expect it to be a huge grind. And despite what the shills say, it doesn't need to be a huge grind. We could very easily start with better starting ratings, to jump online earlier, and to have players that don't feel like they shouldn't be in the NBA at all, and just make it a long road to 90 plus, 99 overall. That's what it really should be. You start out as a viable rookie that is fun to play with and viable online, but it's just a long road if you want to max out and get this super overpowered player. That should be a long journey. It's going to take a while to get there, to that higher level. But starting out at a more reasonable level, that's what people want. Everyone always says, or the shills say, I should say, the shills always say that, oh, you want to be 99 overall week one. Nobody is asking for that, or very few people are asking for that. What they're asking for is reasonable starting ratings that allow you to jump online without doing a bunch of grinding first, or paying for it, as the case may be, and being able to be competitive as long as you have the stick skills. Again, we're always talking about the skill gap and stick skills, Derek, yet people are also happy to pay for an advantage, pay for to skip the grind. So how can it be both pay to win and skill-based? It's just ridiculous. So that's what people want. They don't want to be 99 overall, by and large, week one. They just want to have a viable player out of the gate and to have a reasonable, fun journey to being a super player.
Right, because they've already paid for the game.
Exactly.
They've already paid for the base game. Also, though, Andrew, as you know, as one Twitter user pointed out, you can't possibly dislike anything about 2K23 unless you're bad at the game.
Oh, apparently.
Like, the only reason, remember, I shared that tweet with Andrew, and it actually, what's sad is there's a bunch of people that liked it and commented and was agreeing with this guy. His comment, I'm not going to say the Twitter user's name, but his comment was, the only reason anybody dislikes NBA 2K23 is because they're bad at the game. If you were great at the game, you wouldn't dislike the game.
And it's
like,
it's an offshoot.
What a
yeah.
close-minded shill comment.
Absolutely.
Like, read the room. It's ridiculous.
It's another offshoot of get good, right? That my favorite two words in basketball gaming, get good. As if your criticisms of a game hinge on being able to be the best at it. And yes, certainly if you're not very good at a game, you won't enjoy it as much. I mean, that goes without saying. But as we've said before, so many broken mechanics, you can get good with them. It doesn't mean they're good mechanics.
Listen, I'm good at 2K23.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I posted
your brother's playing
Hall
of Fame. You play in Hall of Fame,
yeah, exactly. We play on Hall of Fame, right? Now, whether not just with Legends either, like with regular teams, and I routinely beat the computer, right? And I've shown those highlights, and people are like, "Wow, the gameplay looks great." I'm good at 2K23, But there's a lot of gameplay issues in 2K23, and I'm going to critique that because I want them to get, I want them to improve the series. So if anybody, that's on the development team, anybody that works for 2K listens to these shows and listens to our commentary or sees what I have to say on social media, etc., maybe that could spark a change, right? And that's why we do it, right? We don't just get on here to critique a game just to throw our thoughts into the wind, right?
Get clout or whatever, yeah.
Right, exactly. What we're doing basically is we know that this podcast has listeners. We know that people do look in on social media for people that are creating content for the game. And we're hoping that our critiques and our ideas as well, that we, to improve the series, maybe somebody sees them or hears them, etc. And maybe that can spark some change. So, that comment is really silly. Like I said, I'm good at NBA 2K23, but it has a lot of flaws from a gameplay perspective, which I've mentioned before, and I would like to see those improve because even though I'm good at the game, I get more frustrated by the game than I do enjoy it. So, yeah, and I think you're in the same boat.
Oh, for sure. And it should be pointed out that when we say critique, that covers both positive and negative attributes of the game. We are talking about both when we talk about these games. And
oh my God! Wait, yeah. That's the other thing. How many times have we said positive things?
For sure.
About not only 2K23 but also 2K titles throughout their entire history.
Exactly. Yeah. No, we absolutely about being honest about the game either way. And as you say, it's about giving feedback to the developers, but it's also about giving honest impressions to our fellow gamers because previews aren't always 100% accurate or 100% truthful because that's not how you sell a game. You have to sometimes embellish the truth, as it were. I do have a video coming out about that, going back to the NBA 2K18, NBA 2K19 fiasco with the developer blogs. So it's keeping our fellow gamers informed. Look, we are going to get the games regardless because we are quote-unquote content creators, we are collectors, we are going to get these games, so we're going to talk about them and we're going to let our listeners, our viewers, our readers of all of our content know our true and honest impressions about the game so that they can make an informed choice. They may not want to pre-order the game, understandably so, and if you don't play my career or my team, the benefits of pre-ordering are much lower. So, yeah, we're going to be honest with people so that they can make an informed choice.
Right. We have a guy like Roger, NBA Live 2001 legend, friend of the show, etc. He is going to wait on what we have to say about NBA 2K24 before he decides to pick it up.
Flattering.
And that means a lot.
It's flattering, yeah.
Right. That's very flattering. And, we love that. And that's one of the reasons why we try to be honest on this show at all times. But the other thing that's silly about that tweet where he says, you only dislike the game because you're bad at it. No, I mean, what about microtransactions, right? Oftentimes people don't like NBA 2K because of the microtransaction piece, right? Because of the fact that they're pushing microtransactions on people and it's forcing people to spend money they shouldn't have to spend. So that's not them being bad at the game, right? That's them, the consumer base, being mad that they have to spend or feel pressured to spend extra money when they feel like they shouldn't have to, or like their fellow gamers shouldn't have to, and that bothers them as well. There's so many reasons that, people can critique that have absolutely nothing to do with them, their skill level at the game.
Oh, for sure. And it's like the whole are you too broke to afford microtransactions rhetoric that's unfortunately becoming more and more common these days, is that it's not about whether you can, it's whether you should.
Right, exactly. And I think the thing with that is making somebody feel guilty or stupid for not shilling.
Yeah.
or not backing like a predatory mechanic, or, making somebody feel guilty for, even if they didn't have enough money, making somebody feel guilty about that and like looking down on them. Like, there's so many things wrong with that stance.
Really, it really is.
How many times have we seen tweets and threads related to people saying, well, you're too broke. Yeah. Stop being broke. All of that stuff. And the only reason why you're upset about this is because you have no money. Like, come on.
And even if you can't afford those microtransactions, again, Should you have to pay that extra money just to enjoy the game? And again, if you are paying to upgrade a player and to skip that grind, it is basically admitting that the game is not fun to play, that it has been designed to be not fun to play in order to push those recurrent revenue mechanics. So
exactly. Otherwise, these people wouldn't be paying to do it, right?
Yeah. Otherwise, it'd be fun to grind.
That's the thing I wish more people would use that, as an example to call out these people that are making those statements. Is you're calling us broke, right? For not wanting to spend money to improve our player or to buy packs in my team or anything.
To enjoy the game.
You're spending all of this extra money to improve your player. Why? Because are you low skilled? Right? You can throw that right back on them. Right. Do you need all of these artificial boosts in order to be able to compete? See, you can go both ways with this.
And people say, I've got a job, I've got responsibilities, I don't have time to grind. To which I say, well, to that point, should the game be that grindy? That's basically saying the game is designed to not be fun to play or to be so time consuming in an unenjoyable way as to want to make you want to pay. That's a problem.
Right. Well, the thing is, Andrew, is the game, and we've talked about this before, the game is an intentional grind.
Of course.
That grind exists in order to make people feel pressured into spending money early on when they buy the game, and spending a lot of it in order to either update their lineup in my team in order to get a competing lineup in that mode and players that they want, and for the online scene to be able to actually have fun and compete and make your player useful, right? So like that grind is there. It's designed that way on purpose.
And it also goes back to if you just want to talk about gameplay as well, we can get used to bad mechanics. We can get used to wonky controls and so forth. But should we? I mean, I can play Live 07. I can use those 3 shoot buttons fairly effectively, but that wasn't a good idea. It's not the only problem with Live 07's mechanics and feel, obviously, but I can use those mechanics. I can get used to the feel of 07. I can force myself to have a bit of fun with that game, especially when you and I connect on it to have a bit of fun and laugh at it and so forth. But that doesn't make it a good game. It doesn't mean that was a good idea for controls or the tech. That's what it comes down to.
Right. You played NBA Action 98 with me. You would say I'm pretty good at the game, right?
Yeah.
That game has one absolutely terrible mechanic. The dribble move button is connected to the dribble drive button. That means you can't do any dribble moves at the 3-point line and in.
Yes.
Because what happens is it forces you to do a floater, right? 100% of the time. So that I like NBA Action 98. I grew up with NBA Fast Break 98. I am good at those games, and I played them a lot. But that doesn't mean that I don't have critiques. And that was a poor design choice. And there's no way to remap the buttons. You can't separate the dribble move button from dribble drive. So, that's the point. It's not about being bad at the games. It's not about being broke, all of that stuff. If a critique is valid, a critique is valid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the point we're trying to make.
As I've said before, fans not fanboys, critics not haters.
Bingo.
Before we go on, a reminder that the NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, me-live.com, as well as our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. If you're listening on any of those apps, we'd greatly appreciate a review. To keep up with the show and everything we're doing with basketball gaming in general, connect with us on social media. On Twitter and Facebook, we are the NLSC. We also have an Instagram, NLSC Basketball, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. Once again, visit us at nba-live.com, where in addition to the podcast, you'll also find all of our original content, as well as our forum and modding community.
So, Andrew, I asked the community over the last couple of weeks questions, and we have responses to go over. So the first question is related to the new ProPLAY feature. So what this is, and I'm actually going to go over 2K's definition off of their website. It states, NBA 2K24 will introduce ProPLAY, a groundbreaking new technology that directly translates NBA footage into NBA 2K24 gameplay. And my question for the community is, which 3 players from NBA's past would you have loved to see this tech used on? and we definitely received quite a few responses, and I'm excited to go over those.
Yeah, and obviously this ProPLAY is an intriguing concept, and we've talked about it before, what we think it might be, and it sounds like we were pretty much on the money getting some animations into the game using old footage. And yeah, anyone that has a very unique style of play, dribbling style or shooting form, or the way they would dunk or leap into the air and their layout packages and whatever, those are the kinds of things that can be enhanced, theoretically, by this ProPLAY.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because we already have signature style and a lot of it in the newer games, right? Especially in the 2K series. NBA Live 19 didn't have nearly enough of it. But, with the size ups that you can chain together, to be able to dribble like Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, James Harden, all of that, the shooting forms, they're already, player specific for a lot of the players, so they shoot like their real life counterpart. You have specific layups with, like, say, Magic Johnson, for example, where he in Teddy Bear the Gamer has shown off a little bit of this, and he's been featured in the top 10 as a result. He does his hook shot, he does his the signature layups, all of that stuff. Kyrie Irving has his own signature layup package and everything. We have layup packages and dunk packages for specific players. So there's already a lot of signature stuff, right? So the ProPLAY feature, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that and how that differs from the already signature style that's in the game. And I think that's what's going to be fascinating about this new technology.
I agree, and I think it's going to be come down to authenticity, really. That you look at some of the players' signature jump shots they have in the game. Some of them do have animations, specific animations that are already in there, obviously. Others are just using the cobbled together, basically the jump shot creator, for example. What we can do for my players or editing a player, they're just put together using existing animations, generic animations that have been blended together, different bases, different releases, so forth. Presumably, it's going to cut down on the use of those for maybe older players and current players alike, I suppose, and get their signature styles into the game without having to get players into the studio to mocap, or to get their mocap artists to emulate players' jump shots, especially classic players. So I see that being an advantage there, that they can take that old footage and get that authentic animation without having somebody physically in a mocap suit, perhaps.
Well, I haven't seen them mention anything about old footage, using it for that.
True.
It sounded like they were talking about using it for the now NBA, throughout the season, right?
Yeah.
Almost
same
like dynamic
concept, yeah.
DNA for Live 09, right? I would love for them to use it on classic players. But the basis of my question was really with the idea that they were going to be using it primarily or only with the now NBA, which is why I asked about NBA's past. The signature shots are absolutely terrible for the majority of the players on the My NBA Eras rosters, on the classic teams, on the all-time teams. They're not even close
Clyde
most
Drexler.
of the time. Players that have jump shots and had jump shots in real life, they have them shooting set shots. Players that shoot above their head, they have them shooting from their chin. All of that, it's kind of, I got to be honest with you, it's disrespectful. I've said that many times before, and it's also, they should be embarrassed about the way they release those rosters year in and year out. And a lot of these issues have been in the game since 2K16, 2K15, etc. So this isn't a new thing. But yeah, my question, why don't we try to answer the question first? And I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to answer first. What 3 players from NBA's past would you like to see this new tech used on?
I mean, obviously my mind goes straight to MJ. I think they have done a pretty good job with these animations over the years, but there's even more they could capture, presumably with this tech, if it's going to work how we think it's going to work. I would love to get MJ's animations into the game. Would love to get some more authentic Sean Kemp dunks, obviously. And, someone like a Tim Hardaway, his killer crossover.
There you go. I like that you mentioned Tim Hardaway. I know you've been using him on NBA Live 18.
Oh, yeah.
On your 90s, your makeshift 90s All-Star team. With MJ, I don't think he's even close to as accurate in 2K23 as he was in NBA 2K11 through NBA 2K13. I think a lot of the animations, signature animations that were in those games, are not in 2K23, or they're not as functional, or do not look as good in NBA 2K23. So I think they went backwards with Jordan, even though NBA 2K23 was supposed to be all about MJ. I can't choose just 3, Andrew. I can't. I know I'm breaking the rules of the question, but there's so many players from the past that I would love to see this tech used on. Guys like Jason Williams, related to the way he actually shoots.
The
some
elbow
of the
pass.
passes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just the passes, getting the he had so many different flashy passes, behind his head, over the shoulder, the pass and look away that he did to, Corliss Williamson, all of that stuff, the hook passes, that dribble that he did on the fast break on Mike Bibby and then pulled up for 3, almost looks like a carry, but it's like a jump dribble. And then he lands and then automatically pops up and shoots a 3 and knocks it down. Jason Williams
Magic
is
Johnson.
one of them.
Magic Johnson's passes.
Magic Johnson. Instead of just all these generic passes for him that are in the game, having some of his true lookaways where it actually looks like Magic Johnson throwing them, and whatnot. His drop behind passes, all of that stuff. The another guy, James Worthy, with all the different moves that he had, around the basket and in the mid-range, and just his footwork and just the way he threw it down. James Worthy's game is so unique at that small forward position. Would absolutely love to see that tech used on a guy like James Worthy. Dominique Wilkins has dunks in real life. I don't think there's anybody that's dunked like Neek, with that sheer power, those two-handed dunks where he cocked it all the way back behind his head and, threw it down as hard as he possibly could. I'd also like them to use that tech on his jump shot, because they have destroyed Neek's signature shot. What they have in the game right now is absolutely nothing like Neek. It makes me never want to use him on the classic teams or through my team, because in my team, I can't even change his signature jump shot. A guy like Tom Chambers, how cool would it be to be able to do that dunk that he did on Mark Jackson, right? Being able to mocap that and put that in the game, that would be amazing. There's other guys like, obviously, MJ. I'd like him to get them to get him right. Hakeem Olajuwon, his footwork. They don't even have his jump shot right. They have him shooting like a little set shot, and his release point is wrong. All of that. Get his mid-range shot right. He was deadly in the mid-range. The moves he was putting on David Robinson. Would love to be able to see him do that in a video game. Wilt Chamberlain, the way he would do, he would turn around and just drop the ball in the rim, right over his defender. I'd love to see, that little finger roll. I'd love to be able to see his real life fadeaway. We've seen footage of it. It was amazing. Mocapping his exact realistic fadeaway, I'd use that as a go-to all the time. I could go on and on. Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, Walter Davis, now that he's in the game, getting his jump shot right. He's one of my favorite players of all time. Steve Francis. I want to drop a defender with Steve Francis and feel like his dribbling is like real life Steve Francis. Remember that play where he dropped the defender and went in for a floater and whatnot? He just kept crossing the guy over, and the defender was losing his mind.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. So I like I said, I could go on and on. Kevin McHale, what an amazing post player. All the little moves he did around the hoop, actually getting his shot right, where he pumps it up over his head. Get that in there. There's, if the technology works like I'm thinking it possibly could, why couldn't they use that tech, possibly using, full games or highlights of old footage?
So that's what comes to mind for us, but what does the community have to say? First of all, we have Chuck LA92, shout out to you, frequent contributor to the Top 10 Plays, of course, has dunks on his mind. Dominic Wilkins, Sean Kemp, and Shaq.
Yeah, the thing with Sean Kemp is he's another guy that has a very unique style, like a very unique movement style, a very unique dunking style. It would be really awesome to capture that and to be able to fly in to the hoop and for him to go for like a spread leg tomahawk, throw it down on somebody, and maybe he does the double point thing that he did to Alton Lister, right? Like stuff like that would be more than welcome in the game. And Shaq, it's tough because you could call his style almost generic in a way because it was just like sheer power a lot of the time, and you can already do a lot of that in the game. The flying in for a one-handed dunk like he did to David Robinson in the NBA All-Star game, which is just a ridiculous dunk. I actually showed that on Twitter. Yeah, classic. I showed that on Twitter at one point, and people were losing their minds about it. But yeah, no, those are three good choices.
And next up we have Mark at BlackZ2013 says Sean Kemp as well, Tracy McGrady, and Penny Hardaway. And when he says Penny Hardaway, my mind, Derek, as I'm sure it does for you, immediately goes to that spinning step back.
Yeah, that's a ridiculous move, and he did that against the Miami Heat. The camera angle that they were able to get of that, and the one that we most commonly see when that replay is shown, it's like right behind Penny, and it looks awesome. And that move is incredibly difficult. The footwork that you have to be able to do that move, and the balance, I just can't even imagine. If I tried that in real life, I'd probably break an ankle. Like, I don't even know how. I don't think I could do that move.
Your ankle, not somebody else's, you mean?
Right. No, exactly. I wouldn't break somebody else's. I'd break my own. Yeah. Penny, his passing style. They don't have a shooting style, right? They never have. And then obviously signature moves like that.
East Coast USC fan at CK Streams says Carmelo never felt like they got the speed of footwork accurate. Amare, Shaq was much more than a brute.
Yeah, I really enjoy using Carmelo Anthony in all NBA 2Ks, NBA 2K17 and prior. Specifically, NBA 2K, I would say 8 through NBA 2K17, because I think that, you could operate in the mid-range in those games. You could operate with your back to the basket more realistically. You didn't have the same amount of suction. His signature shot felt a little bit better in all of those titles than they do in the present day games. So Carmelo, I don't think they've ever really gotten his shot exactly right. I don't think they've ever gotten his style exactly right. But 2K8 through 2K17, I really enjoyed using Melo.
They do have his salute celebration right in a few games. I will give them that.
Yeah, they do have that right.
I like the way that Bucky T is thinking here. Jamal Crawford, Jason Williams, and Rafer Alston, 3 spectacular ball handlers.
He likes the style, that flashy style. The ball handling of all 3 of those players is elite, top tier, and very unique. And all 3 of those guys could also shoot, right? So those quick pull-ups and whatnot. And while Jason Williams and Jamal Crawford weren't exactly super athletes when it came to throwing it down, they had a lot of flashy finishes at the rim. So they were fun to attack the rim with.
And a couple of more responses on Twitter, or X as the case may be. At IamThisIsKG posted a gif of Jason Williams, white chocolate, crossing up Gary Payton.
I mean, that's a legendary moment. And a highlight that gets played over and over again, and we've seen it so many times before. Yeah, another vote for Jason Williams. That's 3 or 4, including me, voting for this feature to be used on Jason Williams if it has the capacity to do so. So, yeah, Jason Williams, very unique player.
And Leo, at Real Kiwi Mamba, Valor in the form, of course, NLSC Thrill Home member, says Hakeem, Magic, and T-Mac. NBA games have yet to fully and accurately showcase their moves to date. It would be good to see Hakeem's footwork and shoulder fakes, Magic's array of look-away passes in transition, and T-Mac's range of ways to create shots on full display.
Can't go wrong with any of those choices. I mentioned Hakeem and T-Mac as part of my choices as well. And obviously Magic's signature style would be more than welcome. And yeah, I think that it's not only, the awesome footwork and the moves around the rim and whatnot, it's getting the shots for those players right. Like I said, Hakeem's is so off in the game. T-Max is way off as well. He can't rise up like he did in real life, etc. Like, getting those shooting motions accurate would go a long way.
And heading over to the NLC Discord now, Shy Guy says, I'd have to say Jason Williams, Vince Carter, and Wilt a flashy passer, a good finisher, and an all-around guy who doesn't have that much footage compared to players from nowadays. If this feature was around back then, this would be awesome. EA is doing the same thing with EA FC.
There you go. And it's nice to see that EA Sports is using that technology as well. And then hopefully if we get NBA Live, they use it on that. Because I think that signature style in NBA Live games is incredibly poor. NBA Live 19, it felt like pretty much every player dribbled the same. Everybody could do the same step back. There wasn't really any uniqueness to a drive with Donovan Mitchell as opposed to a drive with Kyrie Irving. It's just like the players just kind of just like blended together. And I think that was one of the problems with, NBA Live 18 and NBA Live 19 is the fact that they really did lack signature style.
So we'll have to see what ProPLAY is all about. We are going to learn about that the week beginning August 14th. But thank you to everybody who's sending those responses. Clearly there is some intrigue about that, Derek.
Yeah, and I think that it's a great idea. I think that in a year where they're not going to be adding classic teams, where last year and, the most recent release, they added My NBA Eras and all of that stuff. And there's going to be no true enhancements to, say, the My Team mode and everything, and they're going to streamline My Career. It's something that they can hang their hat on for the 2K24 release as an innovation, right? Like, they're showing that they're still innovating, that they're still trying to, enhance the series and that it's not going to stall.
And you do need that flagship addition, that flagship improvement each and every year. Obviously, it's great for marketing, and that's why they want to do it, but we expect that as gamers as well. So hopefully it works out.
Fingers crossed.
But before we wrap up here, Derek, we do have another mailbag trivia question that you put out there this week. So let us indeed open up the mailbag.
To the mailman, the ProPLAY. What an unbelievable dunk.
So I did another trivia, Andrew, and this time it's related to NBA Action 98, which is technically the first 2K. It was developed by Visual Concepts. We talked about this game on last week's show. And NBA Action 98 was released for the Sega Saturn and the PC. And it was called NBA Fast Break 98, basically the same game, for the PlayStation. And that game was released a month later in November of 1997. But my question for the community is related to the Los Angeles Lakers in Action 98. And instead of overall ratings in that game, Andrew, they actually call it OPR, overall performance rating. And I think that's a cool way to put it. Yeah, it's fancy. And I actually wish they still referred to it that way, because overall performance rating makes a lot more sense than just saying overall rating.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it does sound fancier. It does kind of sum up what the overall rating is supposed to be, the value of that player in comparison to the rest of the league, their trade value and so forth. Yeah, OPR, that's, I like that.
And I like the sound of it. But my question was, can you match up the overall performance rating to the Laker? And so on the right side, I have the overall performance ratings of 84, 81, 80, 80, 80, 77, 77, and 74. And on the left, I have the Lakers in question. Nick Van Exel, Eddie Jones, Robert Horry, Eldon Campbell, Shaq, Rick Fox, Kobe Bryant, and Derek Fisher. So, Andrew, like we do every time I do a trivia, you are put on the spot, and you have to give your guesses. So, can you match the player to his overall performance rating?
I mean, I'm going to try, but I'll just go down the list of from 84 down to 74. I'll say Shaq at 84. Imagine that he, as the most established player, the most established star, that he is the top-rated player. I'm going to say 81 is Kobe Bryant, the cover player. I'm going to say that they boosted his ratings a little bit for that. For the 380s, I'm going to say Van Exel, Eddie Jones, and Rick Fox. 77 for Robert Horry, 77 for Derek Fisher, and 74 for Eldon Campbell.
Andrew, my friend, you got one right.
Wow.
So the one you got right was Rick Fox 80. So let me tell you what these were. So Shaq is not the highest overall on this team.
That's insane.
It's Eddie Jones. So Eddie Jones is 84. Shaq is 81. Ori is 80. Fox is 80. Kobe Bryant is 80. Nick Van Exel is 77. Eldon Campbell is 77. And Derek Fisher, fresh off of his rookie year, is 74.
I mean, in hindsight, I can see Fisher being the lowest rated. It wasn't quite clutch performer Derek Fisher yet, but yeah, I mean, Shaq and at least Eddie Jones is number one. At least I haven't put Eldon Campbell number one or whatever. Fine player, not the best player on that Lakers team. But yeah, I would have thought for sure that Shaq, with his athletic ratings and his rebounding and defensive prowess and everything, and obviously offensive acumen, I would have thought he'd be 84 overall. But yeah, other way around.
Right, and obviously Kobe's rating being 80 is off of potential because he did not have a good statistical rookie season, right? So a lot of those ratings for like first or second year players are strictly off of potential. Now, Tim Duncan is a 75, but he hadn't played an NBA game yet, right? So Tim Duncan being the starting power forward on the Spurs at 75 overall is pretty understandable. So I wanted to get into a couple other interesting ratings in this game before we get to the community's responses. So one guard on the Bulls, a.k.a. MJ, is 90, while Pippen is 88 and Rodman is 78. Iverson is 80. I expected that to be a little higher, Andrew. I expected Iverson, to be a higher overall than Kobe because Iverson had a excellent rookie season, right?
Yeah. Well, he wasn't Mr. 2K yet, though, so, you know.
That's true. But so they have him as the same OPR as Kobe. Now, get this. Ray Allen, 78. Kemp, 86. Antoine Walker, 81. So they have Antoine Walker a little higher than Iverson here. And remember, he was a rookie in 96, 97 as well. Glenn Rice, 78. Karl Malone, 86. John Stockton is a 79, while Brian Russell is 80.
Huh.
So Brian Russell is a higher OPR than John Stockton. Mitch Richmond's an 80. Patrick Ewing's an 82. Larry Johnson, 78. Allen Houston, 76. Penny is 83. Finley is 81. Reggie Miller is 81. I actually expected that to be higher. It is not. Grant Hill, 88. Drexler, 81. Barkley, 84. Hakeem, 85. So that's that big three for the Rockets. Gary Payton is 80, so the same as Iverson and Kobe. Vin Baker, slightly higher at 81. David Robinson, off of his injury, 83. I already mentioned Duncan, 75. Jason Kidd is 79, while Kevin Johnson is 81, so they still have Kevin Johnson higher than Kidd as well. McDyess is 80. Kevin Garnett is 83. I expected that to be a little bit higher because he's coming into his third season here. Tom Gugliotta is, I want to say, 81. Stephon Marbury is 75, and that's because he's coming into his rookie season. Sheed is 77. I just got a couple more. Latrell Sprewell is 84, and Chris Webber is 85. So some interesting OPRs throughout the roster.
Yeah, for sure. And ones that definitely stand out as being rather wrong. I mean, Brian Russell being higher than John Stockton is ridiculous. I'm not actually surprised that Stockton is a bit too low, though. He's that style of player, not uber athletic, great shooter, obviously, incredible playmaker, one of the best point guards of all time, but at the same time doesn't have some of those other ratings that usually pump up the overall, or the OPR in this case. So I'm not surprised that it's lower than it should be. I am surprised that it's lower than it really should be, if you will, that is lower than other players, in comparison to other players, I should say, like that. But yeah, some interesting ratings across the board. And we do see that. You go back to a lot of games, and a lot of the overall ratings, especially in the early days before they were really, really paying attention to that, some of them are very weird.
That would never fly today, having Eddie Jones 3 higher than young prime Shaq.
Yeah.
Like, that would never fly today. That's the stuff they could get away with back then. Like,
we weren't obsessed with it, yeah.
Same thing with the Brian Russell and John Stockton thing. There is no way that would fly. That would immediately be flagged, in my opinion, on social media and be like, oh, wait a minute. Brian Russell has a higher overall rating than John Stockton, who's still putting up ridiculous numbers, and the Jazz are going to the finals, right?
Exactly.
Like that doesn't make sense. So a lot of things that were able to fly back then wouldn't fly today.
But let's see if the community can do better than my spectacular score of 1. Roger Ward, one of the Live 01 legends, of course, says Shaq 84, Jones 81, Van Exel, Ori, Campbell 80, Fox and Kobe 77, and Fisher 74.
So we got 2 right. You got Ori and Fisher. This is not that easy because the overall performance rating, like I said, it's kind of all over the place in this game. So don't feel bad, Roger.
So heading over to the NLSC Discord once again, Juicy Shackmeat says Van Exel 81, Eddie Jones 80, Ori 77, Campbell 80, Shaq 84, Fox 77, Bryant 80, Fisher 74. And I think we all got tripped up on Shaq.
Yeah, absolutely. He got a couple right, though. I also want to point out that his guess of Van Exel at 81 is perfectly understandable. How good was Van Exel in the mid-90s? Not just flashy, but just like a super competitor, really good player, won them a lot of games. I love Nick Van Exel. That's another guy with signature style that could benefit from that ProPLAY feature. Yeah, I don't blame anybody for guessing, Van Exel above 80.
And, not to go on a whole tangent here, but a lot of those players get overlooked because not necessarily the flashiest numbers because of their role or the area that they played in, but immensely talented.
Yeah. It just depends on what team they're on sometimes too, right?
Definitely.
Because Van Exel being paired with Shaq, a young Kobe, Eddie Jones, etc., they can't make all of those guys great. So he obviously took a hit here. Like a sacrifice, basically, because he's on a Lakers team that's very good.
And finally, we have Avery says, I feel like I nailed this, I think. Says, I love Action 98. Guesses are Van Exel 77, Jones 84, Ori 80, Campbell 77, Shaq 81, Fox 80, Bryant 80, Fisher 74.
So you got all of them. And this is perfectly understandable because Avery was incredibly excited that you and I were playing NBA Action 98. And I believe he made a comment in the Discord that his dad grew up with these games, with NBA Action 98 and stuff. So because his dad loved them, he loves them, and he loves revisiting them. And he said he's played a ton of NBA Action 98. So congratulations, you're the winner of the trivia. And yeah, really cool to see the younger crowd, enjoying these classics. I love it.
Absolutely. Me too. And it reminds me of my dad introducing me to Intellivision that he used to play with my half-brother before I was born. Being introduced to those games that he didn't grow up with, obviously, but was much more experienced with. So that's a really cool memory, obviously. And another perfect score. So congratulations.
Yeah, great job, Avery.
But thank you to everybody who responded to our community topic and the mailbag trivia this week. We love having that interaction with our listeners and really appreciate you tuning in each and every week. With that being said, that has brought us to the end of this week's show. As always, we thank you for tuning in and invite you to join us again next week, either on the NLSC, NBA-Live.com, our YouTube channel, or your podcast app of choice. In the meantime, please connect with us on social media. That's where you can get in touch with us and, of course, stay up to date with all of our content. So, Derek, go ahead and plug the handles.
You can reach me on Twitter, or soon to be renamed X, at D4 384 and at D4 3G. I am on the NLSC as well, D4 3, and on YouTube, D4 3.
I am Andrew in the forum and Andrew NLSC on the platform formerly known as Twitter. The NLSC is on Twitter and Facebook at the NLSC. We're also NLSC Basketball on Instagram and Threads. We're on YouTube at youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. And of course, give a look to the NLSC itself, NBA-Live.com, for everything we do for basketball video games. So, thank you once again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone.